Oh, turn the thing around so you can see what it is. All right, now you see a little green light up there?
No, it's red.
Okay, then that means it's recording. If it's green, it's stopped, which is just the opposite of what you think it would be, but. All right.
All set?
Yeah.
I think a couple of weeks ago, Sandy probably distributed a first draft of the Tilton Police impact fee analysis that we prepared at the Lakes Region Planning Commission. Since then, I sat down and talked with Sandy and the police chief about the assumptions that we used in the draft, and also the fact that the draft had 5 different scenarios. And basically, those scenarios were developed because we didn't have the best available information at the time, and there were questions on whether some of the information we were going to get, whether we were going to get some of the information that we preferred to have. And since then, I've refined the draft to what you have before you, which is the final draft version, and it only has one scenario in it.
Right.
This isn't designed to be an a la carte menu of choices of how much you want to charge for impact fees. It's designed to take the information that we have available and come to a conclusion about what those fees should be based on reasonable assumptions for residential and non-residential growth. And so that's really the most significant thing that's changed from the first draft to this final version. I think you'll note in the original draft that the starting point was to try to gain a better understanding about the deficiencies that exist at the police department today.
Right.
And we have to be able to sort out any deficiencies because we don't want to charge those to future development. There's something that needs to be taken care of today. So the basis for that information was the space needs assessment that was conducted back in 2007 by, I always forget the name of the group, it's PMCI, Police Management Consultants Incorporated, or maybe International, I'm not sure, PMCI. Basically, what that report said was the existing police department is deficient, and in order to replace the 5,000 plus square feet that exists there today, plus to develop additional space that's needed today, and again, this was back in 2006, 2007, you would be at around the 7,500 square foot range.
Right.
And they also recommended, based on a fairly thorough analysis of police department staff tasks, what the needs would be out to the year 2030. That was your design.
Right.
And so, with all of that taken into consideration, 64% of the new building would be associated with existing needs today, and 36% of that would be associated with new growth. And so in 2010, the Warren article for a new police department totaled $2.7 million. We're talking about, based on those numbers, charging impact fees for $891,000 to new development, just to give you a sense. None of that has changed since the first draft. What I do note in our assessment is there are several things that the town wants to take into consideration when you have a final building design and when you know how that building will be funded. That could cause the need for revisions to this analysis.
Right.
It's not going to change the entire analysis, but the amount is going to change, and so some calculations would have to be done to accommodate that. And also, what we don't have in this report is any accommodation for the principal paid on a bond. So if the town was to bond a portion or all of the new police department, what you would want to do is based on a net present value calculation, credit back what you charge for impact fees for new development, the amount of principal, not the interest. The interest is already taken into consideration. So those are two words of caution. When Sandy and Bob and I sat down and talked about the first draft, what we talked about for a time frame is possibly adopting this methodology in March 2012.
Right.
And that's when the town would have adopted an impact fee ordinance.
Yes.
And you'd have that in your zoning, and then it would be okay to adopt this methodology. So when you get to that point in time, you really want to take into consideration the possibility of some minor adjustments to this assessment, so that you're not overcharging or double charging new development. So that's just a word of caution. One of the first scenarios that I ran in the original draft was I wasn't able to replicate the PMCI growth projections that they used. And part of what I tried to do was back into the numbers that they might have used by saying, okay, I know what the cost is, I know what the design year is. If I apportion that cost across residential and non-residential development, I should be able to get a good indication of what percent increase they used for commercial and residential growth. And what I came up with was 50%. And I looked at that and I said, I'm not certain that 50% in my mind is reasonable and realistic for the town of Tilton. And that's when we developed some forecasts based on historic numbers that we got from the tax assessor database for the effective building area for non-residential development, and also based on housing units and population growth. This revised version uses those numbers, and they're very different than the PMCI first scenario that I ran. For residential development, we came up with 17% growth out to 2030, and for non-residential development, we came up with approximately 25% growth out to 2030, which is 50,000 square feet of building space every 10 years, 5,000 square feet of building space, non-residential building space every annually. And I put the graphs, some new graphs in the assessment to show that growth and the regression analysis that we use to project the growth out in time. And so you will see two different graphs in the updated report. I mentioned borrowed money and the importance of making a calculation. My final test in working on impact fees for other communities, I've been advised by legal counsels, the council and other communities that, you know, a test that the court uses when you're charging impact fees as a community is how closely they are to what other communities are charging. If you're way out in a different ball field in the fees that you're asking for, it may be a more questionable and more scrutinized methodology if it were to end up in court. As I've mentioned to Sandy and Bob, and it's in our agreement with the town of Tilton, this methodology should be reviewed by legal counsel, and I'd be glad to make revisions based on their comments prior to the town considering adopting this.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, I feel very comfortable that what we came up with is justified in the report, and it's accurate. And so my last pass with the latest draft was to compare the fees that I came up with to what other communities charge in New Hampshire. And there's several communities that have police impact fees. There's a list that's on the New Hampshire Office of Energy and Planning website, as well as the amount of fees that they charge. I put together a graph that shows Tilton is on the high end of fees for residential development per unit, and the fee that I calculated for non-residential per 1,000 square feet of development is above and beyond what other the comparison communities charge. It's not off by that much. I think it's Plastow. At the time when their methodology was calculated, they came up with $505 per 1,000 square feet of non-residential development. In Tilton, what we calculated was $600 per 1,000 square feet.
What's that website that you use?
These comparison communities I took from the New Hampshire Office of Energy and Planning website. If you go into their library, alphabetized list of topics in their library on the website, and look at impact fees, you'll come across those communities. I thought it was also interesting to note that for Tilton in census year 2010, the census didn't break out household size by residential unit type.
Right.
They only have household size for residential units overall. It's 2.4 persons per household. In several other communities, they differentiate between single-family, duplex, and multifamily housing in terms of the rates that they charge. In two of the comparison communities, they didn't differentiate at all, but the majority did. The community was interested in revisiting that. My recommendation would be to take those household sizes from the 2000 census and use those as your base point for 2010 numbers.
Right.
And you could prorate those. In other words, if the single-family household size changed by X percent between 2000 and 2010, apply that same percentage to the household size
Right.
for the other residential unit types. And then you could just simply, through arithmetic, prorate what the fee would be charged. We didn't do that because 2010 census information wasn't available, and I felt more comfortable with just having a single fee across all unit types. But I know when I sat down with the chief early on in conversations, we did discuss the fact that the demand by different residential unit types may vary.
Yes.
And so that's
It would be interesting to see that.
That's a consideration. Also, the vast majority of the comparison communities did not differentiate in terms of non-residential types. There's only one community that breaks out the fees and charges differently for retail, office, and industrial space. All the other communities have a single fee for non-residential development, and that's what we did for the town of Tilton. I think the reasons why the fees in Tilton might be different than the comparison communities are important to note as well. I'm not certain the year that each of the methodologies was developed for the comparison communities.
Right.
And so you may have some inflationary pressure, right? And so your cost to produce that new police building may be higher than it is in other communities. Also, we haven't, as I mentioned, taken into consideration a credit, and many of the other methodologies that I've read do take that into consideration, so that would bring the fee down a little bit.
Right.
That, I should point out, is not required by the state statute, but I think it's an equitable way to develop your fee methodology, is to credit back.
Sure.
Ultimately, the folks that are gonna be paying on the bond,
Yeah.
after they move in, they're also gonna be paying their taxes,
Right.
so you really don't want to overcharge those. So those are two of the reasons that I could think of. Third is that the demand for services in Tilton and the community's demand for service
Mhm.
could be higher than the comparison communities. And I did note in our assessment report that that's very true seemingly in Tilton. You have a lot of industry for a small community. There's a job space here as well as a commuter base. There's some associated pressure from that I talked to the chief about. Motor vehicle stops and shoplifting being the
Sure.
leading responses. And so your accidents, motor vehicle accidents, I should say,
Yeah.
demand for services may be much higher. And your delivery of service may be, more than what's demanded in other communities as well. So I think those are really the reasons why the fee might vary from the comparison communities. I think outside of questions that the planning board might have about the methods that we use, that what I see are the next steps. To me, I consider this a final draft unless there's questions or comments on it.
Mhm.
That the methodology, as I mentioned, should be reviewed by legal counsel before being adopted. The planning board intends to adopt an impact fee ordinance in March 2012. And in terms of the contract that we have between the Lakes Region Planning Commission and the town, we set out to develop two types of impact fees.
Okay.
One for police and one for fire, and that the fire doesn't look like it's reasonable.
Not at this point.
So if there is a desire to come up with another impact fee methodology for a different municipal
Right.
service, we should talk about, an amendment to our existing
Right.
contract.
Well, that's fine, because we did speak to the board about it, and they would be interested in going after, the town roads and, stuff like that, because, if you've done any driving around here at all, our roads really suck, so, just being nice.
I did come by way of 132, and I thought it was a very pleasant ride.
They just
Oh, they
refinished
just did that one, yeah.
The one
That's the best road in town.
By the way, I heard on the news the other night that New Hampshire has made a promise that they won't enforce the budget cuts on road care for the winter.
Yes,
Did you hear that?
yeah, I heard it. We'll see.
Well, hopefully, by the upcoming TAC meeting, we'll have some
Yeah.
additional information about that.
I hope
The
so.
snow plowing policy, I talked to the district engineer the other day, and he indicated that it's likely they're gonna stay with their existing policy
Yeah.
as opposed to some proposed change that we're talking
Yeah.
about. People have really got up in arms about that,
Of
and
course.
rightfully so.
Well, they do so little now. I don't know how it is in Meredith, but here, our guys are doing most of the winter maintenance. The state really does what? Route 3, School Street, and Winter, I think, because the soldiers' home is up there. But otherwise, our guys are doing the rest of the roads, and the majority of our roads are state roads. but we're doing the winter maintenance, and they're supposed to do the summer maintenance, but they haven't been doing that for quite a while. You know, I had a culvert that was collapsing on my property, and instead of messing around, I talked to Dennis about it, and he said, when you send the email, keep saying safety, you're worried about people's safety. It worked. They were out in 3 days and replaced my culvert, because the whole road was collapsing. And they had been out the year before, and they just filled the hole up. The whole pipe underneath had corroded and collapsed. So they filled the hole up so, you know, the trucks wouldn't, and put a cone over it. And of course, every time a truck would go by, the cone would go flying into the field, and the water washed all the dirt out again, and the road just started, it was going like this. So, and then when I got a hole on the other side of the road, pretty big one, it's like I just wrote them and told them that I'm petrified that the road's gonna give way, and whoever's driving by is going to be seriously hurt. So for safety reasons, would you at least come and look at it? They replaced the whole pipe. But I mean, that's, the other one that I kept having trouble with, we must have, 5 years it took us before they finally came and replaced that pipe. And it was the same thing, it was gone. The road just kept, every year it would sink a little lower.
Well, the budget cuts are extreme. You know, 4 years ago when the DOT revised their 10-year plan,
Yeah.
and they took it from a $4 billion budget down
Yeah.
to $2 billion.
Right.
We experienced a significant cut in projects in the Lakes region.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that was just the start of,
Yeah.
you know, a downward spiral, it seems. I don't know if this is the last of it, but at the Gasset hearings this past couple of weeks, you know, all of the remaining projects that are left in the 10-year plan, and there's just a handful of them now, have been moved out further in time, with the exception of one, and they found some alternative funding for it because it's a safety problem.
Yes.
It's at Peacham Road and Route 28.
Yeah, well, it
Barnstead.
works. If you have a
Yeah.
project you really need done, you've got to keep stressing safety. Cause that you know, I mean, maybe, I don't know, you know, you have to wonder what would happen if someone went down our road and the road did cave in, you know, and they got hurt. Who are they gonna sue? They're gonna go after the state.
Yeah.
So maybe things like that, if they're really serious, they do go ahead and fix them.
Well, it doesn't seem the political environment is favorable to increasing budgets anywhere, so.
No, it isn't. But sometimes you don't have any choice.
Yeah, we're fighting an uphill battle with that one,
Yeah.
it seems.
Right. I know, talking about the 10-year plan, the light that's at Clark Road and Route 3, that was on the 10-year plan 27 years before it got put in. I'm serious, when we first moved up here, that light was on their 10-year plan.
Well, the Peacham Road intersection that I mentioned,
Yeah.
they talk about that in terms of decades that it's been
Yeah.
taken into consideration.
Yeah.
30 years.
Yeah.
It's a very similar.
Are they finally gonna do it?
Well, hopefully the funding is there for it.
Yeah.
You know, it has a 2016 construction date associated with it right now.
Well, every time our intersection got up towards the top of the list, then all of a sudden, whoop, right back down to the bottom it went. And it did, it took 27 years. We moved in and it was on the 10-year list the year we moved in, and it took 27 years to get that light at that intersection.
So
Yeah,
Silver
one of the
Lake, so Silver Lake, Bob, put that in your note.
Yeah,
I know.
might take 27 years.
How old will you be then?
Yeah.
You might be retired by then.
Yeah.
I did talk to Stuart Thompson this afternoon. He's a safety engineer from DOT. I don't know
Yeah.
if you know him. About Silver Lake Road.
Yeah.
And they had mentioned it when he came back from the selectmen meeting.
Yeah.
That was an area of concern. Stuart had seen, I think it was 8. Is that it's a Y intersection?
Yeah,
with
it's
US
kind of
three?
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
On the northern approach to Route 3, it's seen 8 accidents over
Yeah.
the last 10 years. And then on the southern approach, I think it was 2.
Yeah.
But he did note that, you know, there were some significant crashes in the last 3 years. that, we can talk a little bit more about it too at
Yeah.
the TAC meeting that's coming
Yeah.
up on October 5th. Can be petitioned by the town to have a safety audit done there. And I
Mhm.
think that might be valuable.
Right.
In fact, Stuart encouraged me to work with the town if you're interested, to
Sure.
fill out an application. The one thing that he was potentially concerned about is whether those records are up to date. And I said, well, I'm working with Chief on the police impact fees, and I'm thinking they probably are.
Yeah.
All the records that exist out there, but if there's any accidents that haven't been reported to DOT at that intersection, it would be good to know about them.
Yeah.
And you could include that in the application for a safety audit.
Right, yeah, no, we know Bill out there,
Mhm.
at Silver Lake, Bill Lambert.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And Mount Mullen, they're gonna do some work on their end to check, traffic flow and, there was some talk about a flashing yellow light and making some minor changes first, but to do an actual working set of traffic lights would be a lot more work to widen the intersection, move poles,
Yeah.
and that sort of.
This, the funding for the Peachum Road improvement is through the Highway Safety Improvement Program. And it seems like an expedited process. If you're able to, through a safety audit, convince folks that there's enough of a concern there, it beats trying to go through the district office that
The
is
usual channels.
sleight of funds and, or the 10-year plan process or some other mechanism. So, you know, where Mark and Bill have already come out, the safety audit process really is a team of DOT engineers, and typically the planners from our office participate in the process as well. Go out there with yourself and other municipal officials and really look it over. I think it's beneficial.
Sure.
Bob, a study was done close to that part of Route 3 when MB Tractor presented their site plan to us, and we have that information available. It was a very good study, a very good study.
Okay.
And
And I
very
have
close
that,
to
I can get that to you. or
Yeah, I have
I
some
think
too.
Gus
Yeah,
has
I
it.
have
Do
one
you?
too, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought that was very well done.
When
I
they
just
were
don't
looking
know
at
if it
Manville,
goes-
or when they were looking at moving?
Yeah.
Moving,
Manville
yeah,
Road.
yeah.
It
and
basically showed that Route 3 is a really
It's in
dangerous
failure.
place.
She said it was in failure, Route 3 was in failure.
Yeah.
It had been for years.
That would be good to do for that.
And if you need traffic counts there as well, a traffic count to be conducted, you're able to get that service through the planning commission, whether it's just a classification speed count or whether it's turn and movement counts. That's good supporting documentation oftentimes.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
What's his last name? Safety.
Stuart Thompson.
Melvin's first class.
Okay. All right.
I think if we were gonna do highway impact fees, it would be a very similar process. I'd need to meet with the road agent and other people that
Right.
are knowledgeable about roads, and we'd have to go through and.
Well, let me just explain this and you tell me whether or not it's worthwhile to go after. I know the mental thought in this town is we're not gonna do anything to the state's work. This is just an attitude. And so they certainly aren't going to want to invest any monies on state roads. But that doesn't mean that we don't wanna fix up our town roads. Most of the people around here, most of our citizens are very angry and upset that the state isn't taking care of their own roads. To the point to where it becomes, you question whether the road is still travelable. I'm thinking like Colby Road going down in the wintertime, I mean. So it's a case to where, yes, we would be very interested in having impact fees for roadways, but it would be something that I know most of the board would only, it would be for town roads, it wouldn't include state roads.
Yeah, and it would be a similar situation with state routes is what we experienced with the fire district.
Mhm.
Those are owned and operated,
Right.
managed by the state.
Okay,
And so you wouldn't be able to charge impact
Right.
fees for those routes.
right, even if you raise money, the state's not gonna let you just do something unless they approve it, so.
Right, typically, you know, if a community's inclined to make an improvement on a state road, it would be through the state aid highway or state aid
Right.
bridge program.
Right. Wow, that's quite a waiting list on it too.
It is, but,
Yeah.
you know, it's not as bad as the 10-year plan process, thankfully.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or 27.
10 years goes to 100.
All right, well, I just wanna make sure that, I mean, this is, I know how the board feels, and there's a lot of people in this town that are very much the same way. They don't want to, the state doesn't care about us, we're not gonna care about them kind of an attitude. I mean, the state will come in and fix something up as long as you'll take over the ownership. You know, they're trying to unload all these roads, but, you know, the town just doesn't wanna do that, so they have to live with what they've got. But,
Right, that would be consistent with the focus of
Okay.
the methodology it would be for town roads.
all right, then why don't you, go ahead and whatever you have to do for the contract to make that adjustment. We're having a meeting on the 11th, and we can certainly, you know, we can, if it's ready by then, we'll bring it up with the board. Otherwise, the following meeting, and get that taken care of, so we can move forward on that,
Okay.
okay?
Very good. Thank you, Mike, good job.
All right,
Very
thank
good
you.
job, Mike.
Thanks for your help.
And meanwhile, I will also, Jane and I can bring up to the board about, you know, getting this over, picking an attorney to go with one of our attorneys. And-
Okay, so the town's gonna take on that responsibility of getting it to legal counsel for review, and you'll share any
Oh,
comments that
yeah,
you
I'll
get
send
back.
you whatever we get back,
I
yeah.
know when I worked on the highway impact fees for Northfield, Barton Mayer, who's their town attorney, called me up and we had a good discussion after
Mhm.
he had read through the impact fee
Right.
methodology. So if there's that opportunity,
Yeah.
I'd certainly welcome it.
Right.
Sometimes it's easier to have the conversation than it is to try to wade through some notes from.
Oh,
from
no
an
question,
attorney.
I personally would encourage that. If you have
Yeah.
questions, you call Mike, and if Mike has questions, he'll call you,
Yeah.
because something always gets lost in the translation. It's much different than if you can just sit and talk to each other. you
That's
know.
great,
Okay,
good.
all right,
Sorry we didn't have a bigger group.
yes.
Well, they missed out, I guess.
Yes,
they
right?
did.
And
They
I
certainly
have
did.
copies, I'll leave these with you,
Okay.
so that you
Yeah.
can share them with other folks.
Yeah, 'cause I didn't make any for anybody else. I knew they weren't coming.
And I stayed awake, so that's how good it was.
Yeah.
And took notes.
Very nice. So, timeline for highway impact fees, are we talking about March? I know we got to a point where this was a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, you
We were
said
looking
you
for
already
it.
had something that you'd written for Northfield that they didn't use, that you might be able to tweak for us.
Yes.
So, I don't know, what do you need as far as getting it ready? Because whatever it would be something like with the police, it would be adopted after town meeting, when our ordinance is finalized and approved, then the board could be meeting to adopt that.
I'd like to work on it sooner rather than later. I think the trick with highway impact fees is really the rational nexus test,
Mhm.
which is simply, you know, is there a rational relationship between the fees that are being charged
Mhm.
and the improvement for the user? And
Right.
so in Northfield, what we defined were 3 different districts, and those fees varied according to
Right.
trip generation and
Right.
proximity to commuter sheds as well as municipal services. So we kind of use census data to parcel that out.
Yeah.
That is a little bit time consuming. It's probably the trickiest part of doing highway impact
I
fees.
read that. Did you give us a copy of that?
I did.
Okay, that's where I read it
I
then.
believe I provided.
Well, I've read it, so that's, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why don't I do this? Tomorrow morning I have to talk to Dennis anyway. He's our highway director. Why don't I have him, I'll give him your contact information and have him get a hold of you. He can explain everything that he's doing now, like he really has his own, I'm not gonna call it a CIP, but it is kind of, every year he has asked the voters to put money aside. He has a road repair fund, he has a bridge repair fund, which we now used up, but I mean, he has all this, and he does have his own rotation of what he does,
That's great.
which roads are taken care of every year, and, you know, so I think probably that would be the best place to start is with him. He's very knowledgeable about all the roads and what he does and when he does it, and, so you'd have a much better idea, and, you know, I could call him in the morning and says, what the hell do you wanna do that for? I got everything covered. So, but I will give him your contact information and just ask him to get a hold of you, that this is what the planning board is looking to do, and that you're going to need some information, and, please call him, and, he can let you know what it is he's gonna need,
Very good.
okay?
All right.
All right, so I'll do that in the morning. I've gotta call him about a couple other things anyway, so.
Good.
I have to give him, I have a major complaint with him. I walked from the Sanfordton Farmers Market.
Yeah.
I was trying to walk down to Starbucks to get a cup of coffee. I know that's a long walk,
Yeah.
but Pat had something else, but I started walking. And I almost got killed, number one. Number two, it took me twice as long as it should have taken me because of the work he's done on that road recently. I got as far as Joy and Oliver's house,
Yeah,
but I would have gotten twice as far.
yeah.
Except he's just done all the ditches.
No, he didn't do that.
The
The
state?
Oh, the
That's
state,
state, that's
well,
the
then I'm
state.
gonna complain to the state then.
Yes, call the state. They just didn't.
I'm telling you, it was terrible. I'd have to get off the shoulder, cause it's, cars speed up there, it was unbelievable.
Well, how about this depth of some of those ditches? I was
Yeah.
reading
Well, I-
last winter to see cars
Well, I
going
was so
over.
short, I couldn't see up over the top, Sandy, when I get down in it. And then I had to crawl back up.
They had right at the edge of the road and down 4 or 5 feet, you know, it's
I
like,
couldn't
They're
believe
like
it.
dirt culverts,
yeah,
because people go.
Yeah, you get off the road at at night or in the rain when you can't
Yeah.
really see.
But there's no shoulder at
oh,
all.
no, none at all, it's just a
Terrible.
ditch, you know, right at the edge of the road, and I know, going up from our street, just that, it's a light incline, it looks so innocent, but cars start up and they're going too slow, and there's a ditch on that side, and you see them go flump into the ditch. And what's really funny is the next one comes along and he's gonna stop and help, but he stops on the incline, so he tries to get in front of him, flump, he falls into the ditch behind him. One night, we had 4 cars, boom, 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 boom. So finally, a truck came up, and he got way ahead of them and then started backing down the hill to get to where they were. But he started slipping and sliding, and I thought sure he was gonna run into the first car in the ditch, but he managed to stop it. And then he had to come along, he was pulling him out, running.
Come-alongs are the best things to use in those situations.
Yeah, they are. But every year we get at least one car that just, off they go.
Need a guardrail there.
Well, then they'd wreck the hill. But I think it's the way the road crowns right there. It's got a significant crown to it, and of course you fall right into the ditch. You know, because they start out too slow going up that slope, and you put a little snow and ice on it, they start fishtailing, and they say, you know, they're in the ditch.
Well, I'll tell you, these cars weren't going a little too slow coming up that road, they were.
Yeah.
132.
Yeah, boy,
No,
they
no,
did.
they-
Oh, well, now that they've put the new pavement down, it's like a speedway over there. Before you couldn't, your car wouldn't be alive when you got to the end if you did any speed at all, but now
Now your
it's,
tires on it.
yeah.
There's a little stretch by Gaza where 127
Yes.
splits off.
Yes.
It's still pretty.
Yeah, it is
bumpy.
pretty rough. Yeah, I was out there a couple weeks ago. Wow, what a little.
Yeah.
I know, I was
It's rough.
surprised, normally when we come up to Meredith to go, we go to the Salmonton exit and get on the interstate there. I was like, wow, they repaved this whole road, it was like nice.
It is nice.
But, all right, so I guess we'll see you tomorrow night.
Yes.
You going to the, this looks like it's gonna be an interesting one. I've seen
Actually, I'm going to Ashland to talk to them about their master plan tomorrow night.
So
Very
you won't
good.
be at Meredith with us?
No,
No, well,
they'll all
I thought the other one we went to was very good.
oh yeah,
It was
it
very
was
good.
fantastic.
Somebody called today, they found a minor mistake in the section about the Shoreline Protection Act.
Oh, mhm.
So they've been trying to work that out this
Okay.
afternoon.
No, they did a good job last week. I didn't fall asleep. Sometimes,
It was
well,
better than the budget thing that I went to down in Manchester. Part of that was good, but part of it was towns that did not in any way compare to Tilton. I mean, after all, I don't think that Hanover compares to Tilton in terms
Right.
of setting up a budget, and then they have Laconia, that doesn't really compare to Tilton. So that's the only part that I found a waste of time. This wasn't anything I could relate to, and that's why I'd gone, was to that portion of it.
well, it's pretty good though. It gives you a general overall idea of what's going on.
Good lunch though,
Good lunch.
excellent lunch.
They always have good lunches. All right, well, we appreciate you coming down.